Good morning. Welcome to the biology class. Today we are going to start with session 12. In the last class, I had given you the introduction of the chapter photosynthesis, and today we will be continuing with the same chapter in this session 12 itself. Okay, this is chapter 6 and the date today is 23rd May 2020. Okay, so before moving ahead, let's have a quick recap of what we have studied in the last class. Okay, so in the last class we understood about the process of photosynthesis. I had explained you that plants as self-food producers. Plants are self-food producers, and what makes them to produce the food by themselves? It is the autotrophic nature of the plants. I had explained you about the process of photosynthesis, definition of photosynthesis. I had explained you about significance, that is importance of photosynthesis. In the importance of photosynthesis, it was explained to you that due to this process of photosynthesis, food is provided for all, isn't it? For the carnivore animals as well as for the herbivores. Then for the oxygen supply also, photosynthesis plays a very vital and important role, as during the process of photosynthesis, the byproduct which is obtained is oxygen itself. Then this photosynthesis controls the carbon dioxide concentration. And how does it controls the carbon dioxide concentration? Since it utilizes the carbon dioxide gas in the same process of photosynthesis. Now, the fourth significance that I had explained was due to photosynthesis, it supplies additional plant products. Additional plant products are supplied into the nature. That includes gums, essential oils, medicines, timber, a variety of items. Okay, then I had explained you about the chlorophyll, which is a very important and vital pigment, and it provides the green color to the leaves and to the upper part of the plant, means to the part of the plant which is above the soil. Then I had explained you the meaning of the sentence that why too much light destroys chlorophyll. Okay, and we know that light is very important to chlorophyll in order to carry out the process of photosynthesis, since it activates the chlorophyll molecules. Okay, so but when too much of light, what happens? It destroys the activity of chlorophyll. I had explained you about chloroplast organelles, which are very important organelles found in the plants. These chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis. Raw material for photosynthesis, I had explained you the various raw materials which are required for photosynthesis are carbon dioxide, second was water, and the third was solar energy. We had discussed about the regulation of stomatal opening for letting in carbon dioxide, not only for letting in carbon dioxide but for the exchange of gases. Basically, carbon dioxide goes in and oxygen, that is the byproduct of photosynthesis, moves out of the same aperture. We had discussed about the opening and closing of the stomata, where two theories were explained. The very first theory was sugar concentration theory, and the second theory was potassium ion exchange theory. After this, we had discussed about adaptation, various types of adaptation that are found in the leaves, which promotes photosynthesis in a better way in all the green plants. So this was about the recap. So today we will be moving ahead with the chapter, that is photosynthesis, and we will be understanding basically the things that we will be studying today are: first thing, we will be studying about mechanism of photosynthesis. Then we will be understanding about two phases of photosynthesis. The two phases, the first phase will be the light phase, which is also called as the light dependent phase. It is called as light dependent phase because this phase is dependent on the presence of light. Means this phase will take place in the daytime itself. Okay, this phase itself will consist of various steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3 that I will be explaining you as I will explain the topic. Then I will be explaining you about the dark phase or the light independent phase. Okay. Then and the second phase is dark phase or light independent phase. Light independent phase is also called as biosynthetic phase or Kelvin-Benson cycle, on the name of the scientist who discovered it or worked upon it. In the same as we'll move forward, we'll be understanding about the main events that take place during the process of photosynthesis. I'll be explaining you the differences, the various differences between light reaction and dark reaction, and the end result of the product of photosynthesis. What is the end result that we get from the process of photosynthesis? Then we'll be moving ahead with the topic of conversion of glucose into starch. Glucose, which is formed as a result of photosynthesis, cannot be stored into the plant's body. Okay, because it's an unstable compound. That's why it needs to be converted into a stable form. That is, it gets converted into starch and other compounds, and it is stored in various parts of the plant's body. So that is what we are going to study today. Okay, so let us start with the first topic of the day, that is mechanism of photosynthesis. As I have told you in the previous class, where I had explained you the structure of vertical section of leaves. The vertical section of leaf, when you will observe, you will see the palisade and spongy cells. Both palisade and spongy cells are together called as the mesophyll cells. These are the principal centers of this activity of photosynthesis. And as you all know, the photosynthetic activity takes place during the daytime. So in the daytime, when the sunlight will fall on the leaf, what will happen? The sunlight will get trapped by the chlorophyll molecules in the upper layer of the mesophyll cells, that especially the palisade cells. Okay, the energy is this energy that is in the form of photons. The light energy, which is in the form of photon, is utilized for the chemical process which is involved in the manufacture of food. So the energy which is obtained from the sun, that is only converted into chemical form. Okay, and it is utilized in the production of the food for the plants as well as for the other animals which are dependent on the plants. The raw materials used are carbon dioxide and water. In the previous class itself, I had explained you that carbon dioxide is obtained from the atmosphere and water is absorbed by the roots of the plant from the soil. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere enters the leaf by diffusion down a concentration gradient. So that was also explained that carbon dioxide from the outside of the plant will enter inside of the plant through a special aperture, that is stomata, towards and down the concentration gradient. Okay, from its higher concentration to where it is in low concentration, and that will happen through a special aperture that opens during the daytime, and that is the stomata. Water is taken from the soil. Okay, it is absorbed by the roots. Okay, and then it moves, first of all it is absorbed by the roots and it is moved by the stem and the branches to various parts of the plant to the leaves where it is required, and it is sent up through the stem and finally to the leaf by the ascent of sap. Okay, so that will be the basic thing that will happen. Okay, then the chemical equation to represent the overall chemical equation that we will be seeing during the process of photosynthesis will be 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 12 molecules of water in the presence of light energy and chlorophyll pigment will get converted, or it will get converted into 1 molecule of glucose, that is C6H12O6, 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of oxygen. This oxygen is only supplied, or it is transmitted into the air. Okay, this is the oxygen which is produced is the byproduct. Okay, which moves into the atmosphere. Now the glucose which is produced, okay, this is only the food, okay, this is only the food which is utilized by the plant. Also it is converted and stored in the form of starch, and it can be used afterwards by the plant itself, or it can be stored and can be used by the other heterotrophs. So the glucose molecule is simple sugar that readily is soluble in water, means that readily dissolves in water. The 6 molecules of water which are liberated at the end of the process are those that are reformed. Now the water, 6 molecules of water that is forming after the reaction of this photosynthesis, these are those which are reformed during the chain of reaction. They are reformed during the chain of reaction and not the original one. So as in the raw material also water was taken. So one may get confused that the water which is being used for the raw material is only being liberated out in the other side of the reaction. It is not so. It is actually reformed. These 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water, they react with each other, and again on the other side the water that we are getting, it is reformed. Okay, it is again reformed. It is not the same molecule of water that is utilized. Okay, so now moving ahead to the next one, that is the light phase. The 2 phases we are going to study now, that is the 2 phases of photosynthesis. In the first phase we will be seeing light phase or light dependent phase. Okay, by the name itself, we can make out that light dependent phase means it is dependent on the presence of light. This light phase is also termed as photochemical phase or black man's reaction. Why it is called as photochemical phase? Because the light radiation or the sunlight, that is photons get converted into the chemical form. Okay, then light plays, as we all know, light will play a very key role and very important role in this phase. And here a series of chemical reaction will occur one upon the other in a quick succession. Then the reaction will be initiated by light, when light on the form of photons will fall on the surface of the leaf. Since the reaction is initiated by the light, therefore this phase is termed as photochemical phase. This reaction takes place in the thylakoid. This is the site. Thylakoids are the site where this photosynthetic process will take place. So this you have to keep in mind. This reaction takes place in the thylakoid. The walls of the thylakoid only contains the chlorophyll pigment, and you know chlorophyll pigment plays a very important role in the process. And where are these thylakoids present? They are present in the chloroplast. The main step involved in this reaction. Now we will be moving to the various steps that are involved in this light phase or light dependent phase. Okay, so let us see step 1, that is activation of chlorophyll. It means what happens in this? The chlorophyll molecules will get activated on the exposure to the sunlight, or it receives the light energy from the sun and it becomes activated. Okay, means the chlorophyll molecules get activated after the absorption of photons. Okay, so that is what happens during the first step, that is activation of chlorophyll molecules after the absorption of photons. Now coming to the next step, what happens in the next step? In the next step, splitting of water molecule will take place, which is also termed as photolysis. Photolysis of water. What happens? 2 molecules of water, upon when light energy will 4 photons will fall on it, it will split these 2 molecules of water into 4 H plus ions, 4 electrons and 1 molecule of oxygen. This is what happens in splitting of water or photolysis of water. Then what will happen? The oxygen component is given out as O2. You can see here the oxygen component has been given as O2. Actually what happens? 2 oxygen combine to give a molecule of oxygen, and this oxygen is only released into the atmosphere. The absorbed energy is used, the photons which are absorbed by the chlorophyll, that is used in splitting the water molecule into its 2 components, that is hydrogen and oxygen, and along with that electrons are also released. Okay, so this is the reaction that will take place during photolysis of water. The reaction is known as photolysis, which means splitting of light. So that is what happens during photolysis of water. Let us move on to the definition of splitting photolysis of water. This photolysis of water can be defined as the splitting of water molecules into hydrogen ions and oxygen in the presence of light and grana is called photolysis. Once again, I'll be telling you the definition. That is the splitting of water molecules into hydrogen ions and oxygen in the presence of light and grana is called photolysis. Next, the oxygen component is given out as oxygen molecule. You can see here it is given out as oxygen molecule that I have explained you. Okay, now moving on to the next step where the formation of adenosine triphosphate, that is ATP, takes place from ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate. Okay, this is energy rich compound. Okay, how does the formation of this energy rich compound takes place? It will take place by the addition of inorganic phosphate to a molecule of ADP, adenosine diphosphate. Here what will happen? Inorganic phosphate will get attached, forming ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. So that will be the third step where formation of ATP from ADP will take place. Formation of ATP, since ATP is an energy rich compound, from ADP will take place. The electrons, I have told you, these electrons actually they play a very important role in this step. The electrons are used in converting the ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate, into energy rich compound, that is ATP, by the addition. This addition of inorganic phosphate to ADP will take place by the utilization of these electrons. ADP plus phosphate, but it will utilize these electrons, will convert it into ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Okay, since phosphate are getting attached by light energy, this process is also called as photophosphorylation. It is called as phosphorylation. Addition of phosphate, you can see here addition of phosphate is taking place, and that is why it is called as phosphorylation. Since the energy which is used in carrying out this process of phosphorylation are light energy in the form of photons. Therefore, this phosphorylation is termed as photophosphorylation, means addition of phosphate is taking place by the usage of photons as energy. Okay, light energy is utilized in the addition of this inorganic phosphate to ADP in the formation of adenosine triphosphate, and that is the reason it is termed as, the whole reaction is termed as photophosphorylation. Okay, so this is termed as photophosphorylation. Now again, what happens in step 4? Formation of this NADPH will take place. Okay, so how will this formation of NADPH will take place? Actually, this NADPH is the reducing power. Okay, so this NADP, then again electron and hydrogen ions will get attached in the presence of this electron only. The hydrogen ions will attach to it, and it will form in the presence of enzyme, which will get converted into NADPH. Okay, so in the step 4, what happens? NADPH will be formed from NADP by the addition of hydrogen ions and in the presence of enzyme. So the fourth step is formation of NADPH. The hydrogen ions, that is H plus, released in the photolysis of water, it is picked up by the reducing power compound. This is the reducing power compound. It is picked up by the reducing, this is the reducing power compound. It is picked up by the reducing power compound and gets itself converted into NADPH. Adenine, it gets converted into NADPH. What is the full form of this NADP and NADPH? NADP is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, and when it gets converted into nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate hydrogenase. Okay, so NADP is the organic substance, and what will happen? Since it's the organic substance, it will take the hydrogen ions. Being organic substance, it will accept the hydrogen during the photophosphorylation. It will accept the hydrogen, and it is a coenzyme which works in the association with enzymes to catalyze the biochemical reaction. It will also act as a coenzyme in catalyzing the biochemical reaction. So this was all about the light reaction. Okay, you need to keep in mind that light phase or the light dependent reaction consists of 4 steps, where first of all activation of chlorophyll will take place. Means the chlorophyll molecules will absorb light or in the form of photons, and the light energy is used in the second step for the splitting of water, that is photolysis of water, which will give 4 molecules of 4 hydrogen ions, 4 electrons and oxygen. This oxygen is only liberated out through the stomata. In step 3, formation of ATP from ADP will take place, where inorganic phosphate will be attached by using the electron, and the formation of energy rich compound, that is ATP, will take place. And in step 4, formation of NADPH by the addition of electrons and hydrogen ion. Okay, it gets converted into NADPH. So we can make a gist of what actually happens in the light phase. Usually in the light phase, in the presence of the sunlight during the daytime, formation of energy rich compound, that is ATP, and the reducing power, that is NADPH, takes place. Means the formation of these 2 chemical molecules takes place during the light phase or the light dependent phase of photosynthesis. Okay, so now let us move to the next phase of this photosynthesis, and that is dark phase or light independent phase. Why it is called as light independent phase? Because this phase is not dependent on the presence of light. Where there is light or not, that will take place. Okay, this dark phase or light independent phase, it is also called as biosynthetic phase. Why it is called as biosynthetic phase? Because here the formation of organic molecules or the food molecules, that is the formation of glucose, takes place. It is also called as Kelvin-Benson cycle, on the name of the scientist who worked upon this cycle a lot. Okay, in the earlier time, this was termed as a dark phase. It is the old term. It did not mean this dark phase. When we are using the term dark phase, it did not mean that it occurs only at night time. If we say the dark reaction takes place in dark, that will be a wrong quote. Actually, it means that the reaction is not dependent on light, and that is the reason it is better to say now that it is better to call it light independent phase. The reaction in this phase do not require light energy, and it occurs simultaneously with the light reaction. Means light reaction, dark reaction, both of it will take place simultaneously. Means whether light is there or it is not there. Okay, the biosynthetic formation or the biosynthesis of organic molecules will keep on taking place. Okay, the time gap between the 2 reactions, that is the light and the dark reaction, is less than 1/1000th of a second. And what actually happens during this dark phase, that we will be seeing. Okay, so during this dark phase, carbon dioxide fixation occurs by a series of enzyme catalyzed steps. Means various types of chemical reaction will take place that will be catalyzed by various enzymes, and at last the food is formed in the form of glucose, that is carbohydrate, and that is synthesized. Means carbohydrate is synthesized. Then the reaction were first of all discovered by Melvin Kelvin and Andy Benson, and upon their name only, that is, the cycle is also called as Kelvin-Benson cycle. Okay, now this carbon dioxide enters the Kelvin-Benson cycle through a special carbon dioxide acceptor compound. Here a very important carbon dioxide acceptor compound plays a very important and very vital role, and that is RUBP. The full form of this RUBP is ribulose bisphosphate. So this compound plays a very important role in accepting or in absorbing the atmospheric carbon dioxide into the plant, or fixation of carbon dioxide. This fixation of carbon dioxide is catalyzed by an enzyme. There is an enzyme called ribisco. The full form is ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase. So this fixation of carbon dioxide will be catalyzed by the presence of this enzyme. The molecules of ATP and NADPH, I had told you when are these ATP and NADPH are formed? During the light phase. Okay, ATP is an energy rich compound and NADPH is the reducing power. So the molecules of ATP and NADPH produced during light reaction, they will provide the energy needed to fix the carbon dioxide. Okay, so the carbon dioxide acceptor, that is RUBP, in the presence of the enzyme that is ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase, that is ribisco, and it will use the energy will be provided by ATP and NADPH. Okay, that will give the energy to fix the atmospheric carbon dioxide. Now the hydrogen from the NADPH will combine with carbon dioxide producing glucose. So what will happen? The hydrogen NADPH from NADPH. What will happen? The hydrogen of NADPH will combine with the carbon dioxide that has been absorbed, that has been brought about of fixation of carbon dioxide, which has been done. It will combine with this carbon dioxide and forms the organic compound, that is glucose. Ribulose bisphosphate is regenerated. So this RUBP is again regenerated to start the Kelvin-Benson cycle, and in this is in a form of cycle. RUBP will be regenerated, and that will be again continuing the same process. Means the fixation of carbon dioxide will keep on moving, and in this way this Kelvin-Benson cycle will keep on moving again and again. Okay. Now we'll be seeing, so this is what happens in the dark phase or the light independent phase or biosynthetic phase, which is also termed as the Kelvin-Benson cycle. You know very well why it is called as the Kelvin-Benson cycle. Now we'll be moving to the next topic of the day, that is main events during photosynthesis. Okay, we will be seeing the main event that happens during photosynthesis. First of all, what will happen? Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere will enter through the stomata of the leaves. Okay, means fixation of carbon dioxide will take place. Water from the soil is taken up by the roots, and it is sent to the leaves where it is distributed to the mesophyll cells. Then sunlight is absorbed by chlorophyll of mesophyll cells. Already as it is explained, sunlight will get absorbed by the chlorophyll which are present in the mesophyll cells. Solar energy will split the water molecules. That was splitting of water molecules is photolysis of water, where 4 hydrogen ions and this oxygen is released. Oxygen will be produced as a byproduct during the process of photosynthesis, during the process of photolysis of water, that will diffuse out into the atmosphere. Hydrogen ions will be utilized in the formation of NADPH. In the formation means this H hydrogen will combine with NADP and it will form NADPH. With carbon dioxide, and the hydrogen from the NADPH will again will be utilized by the carbon dioxide for the formation of glucose molecule, and this is how the formation of organic molecule or the formation of food takes place. Okay, so we can see here the overall chemical reaction of photosynthesis that takes place, where 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 12 molecules of water, okay, they will combine in the presence of sunlight, means in the daytime, in the presence of chlorophyll pigment, and it will give 1 molecule of glucose, and 6 molecules of water are liberated. Now one thing has to be kept in mind, as it was already told today, that this 6 molecules of water is not coming from this water, okay? It is reformed during the process of photosynthesis, okay? And 6 molecules of water are reformed, and it will give 6 oxygen. So 6 oxygen molecules that will be liberated into the atmosphere, okay? So this will be the overall reaction. So now we will be moving ahead, and we will be seeing some of the differences between light and dark reaction. Okay, we will be understanding the difference between light and dark reaction. So let us see what is the basic difference. It is also asked in the examination. Differentiate between light and dark reaction. So light reaction is light dependent reaction, means it will take place in the light. Dark reaction is light independent reaction, means whether light is there or not, it will take place. The second difference is light reaction involves chlorophyll. Okay, chlorophyll will play a very important role in light reaction, whereas in dark reaction uses chlorophyll. Okay, so the third one will be light reaction occurs in thylakoids. That will take place. This light reaction will take place in the thylakoid membranes of the chloroplast, whereas dark reaction will occur in the stroma of the chloroplast. So they will occur in the different sites. Then in light reaction, light energy is used to form ATP and NADPH, and oxygen is released. On the contrary, in dark reaction, ATP and NADPH are used for the fixation of atmospheric carbon dioxide. So these are the differences between the light reaction and dark reaction. Let us move on to the end results of the products of photosynthesis. What are the products that we obtain after the process of photosynthesis? The very first product is glucose. The glucose which is formed is immediately will be consumed by the plant cells in order to carry out its all biological functions. The extra glucose will get stored in the form of insoluble starch. Since this glucose is an unstable compound, it cannot be stored in that form in the various parts of the plants. Therefore, it needs to be converted in such a form that it can be stored. So it gets converted into starch, and then it can be stored in various parts of the plant's body. When the plant needs energy, it will get converted into starch, will get converted into sucrose. Uses its in synthesis of fat and proteins. So this glucose will be utilized in the formation of or synthesis of fats as well as proteins, and it is stored as a reserve food material. Then the second result and product is water. This water which is produced in the process may be reutilized in the continuance of photosynthesis. As we all know, this water is a raw material which is required for the process of photosynthesis. So the water they may be reutilized, or some of the water will get in the form of water vapor. It moves out by the process of transpiration. A majority amount moves out in the form of transpiration. Then the next, the third product which is formed is oxygen. This is the byproduct. Some of the oxygen will be utilized by the plant's respirational process. Means the plants will utilize that oxygen, okay, and a majority of it is released. But the amount which is utilized, it will be utilized by the plants. That is the plant's leaf cells. And this phenomena where the utilization of this oxygen is carried out for respiration is termed as photorespiration. Major portion of it, that is water, oxygen, diffuses out into the atmosphere through the stomata. This oxygen is not a waste. With the oxygen which is released out from the plants, it is not a waste, as all the organisms they require the oxygen, or oxygen is the life-giving gas. We all know that. So organism will require it for their existence on the earth. So that will be, this oxygen will be required by the plants, as well as it will also be required by the animals. The plants will also require it during the day as well as during the night time. Means it's a very important respirational gas. Okay, now the next thing, we will be seeing conversion of glucose. Okay, we'll be seeing conversion of glucose into starch and other organic compound. So this will be the last topic for the day, that how does this glucose gets converted into. I have told you glucose is an unstable compound. For its storage, it needs to be converted into the form that is starch. Glucose is formed during photosynthesis. It is soluble in water, means it can really get dissolved in water. It is synthesized continuously and rapidly. It cannot be transported to other cells at the same rapidity. Okay, glucose, which is formed, as I have told you, it is an unstable compound and it is formed so fast, and at the same rate it cannot be transported to various parts of the plant. That is why it needs to be converted into starch, and whenever it is required by the various parts of the plant, it will get again converted into glucose. From the starch will get converted into glucose and it can be utilized. Therefore, several glucose molecules, they will rejoin together to produce a molecule of starch. So several glucose molecules will unite together to form a big molecule, and that will be called as starch. And this joining of glucose molecule is brought about by a process which is called polymerization. Poly means many. Many molecules of glucose will be joined together by the process of polymerization to form starch molecule. At the night time, the stored starch, the starch which is formed by the process of polymerization, that gets reconverted into soluble glucose. It will get again converted into soluble glucose form, which is now transported to all the cells of the plant, and that will be transported to all the plant cells wherever it is required through the phloem. Glucose transported is to different cells is partially used in respiration. This glucose will be utilized during the process of respiration. What happens in respiration? This breakdown of food material or organic material will take place, which will release energy. Okay, and the remaining glucose is again converted into starch and it is stored for further use. Cellulose is the main constituent of cell walls of the plant cells. That is also formed by the same. It is formed. This cellulose is also formed by the joining together of large number of glucose molecule. Some intermediary compounds are also produced during the dark reaction that are converted into simple amino acids and fatty acids. Means the formation of these amino acids and fatty acids will also result by the union of glucose molecule itself, and they will the union will take place which produces proteins and fats. Means utilization of this amino acids into the conversion of proteins and fatty acids into fats. That is also brought about during this dark phase itself. So this was the topic for the day that I had selected. So I have completed the explanation of today's topic. Okay, and I have completed it, and there are some homework questions that you need to write in your copies that I'll be showing you during the PowerPoint presentation. Let us move on to the PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared for the day. Chapter 6, Photosynthesis. This is the continuation of the chapter that I had started in the last session. So what are we going to study today? We will be seeing mechanism of photosynthesis, light dependent phase, light independent phase, difference between light and dark phases, that is the difference between light and dark reaction. So let us see the mechanism of photosynthesis. Mesophyll cells, both palisade and spongy, in a leaf are the principal centers of this activity. During daytime, sunlight falls on the leaf. The light energy is trapped by the chlorophyll of the upper layer of mesophyll, especially the palisade cells. This energy is utilized in chemical processes involved in the manufacture of food. Carbon dioxide from the atmosphere enters the leaf by diffusion down the concentration gradient. Water from the soil is taken up by the roots, sent up through the stem and finally to the leaves. The chemical equation to represent this process is 6 molecules of carbon dioxide and 12 molecules of water in the presence of sunlight, and chlorophyll pigment will give 1 molecule of glucose, 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of oxygen that will be liberated out through the stomata. The glucose molecule is a simple sugar which readily is soluble in water. The 6 molecules of water liberated at the end of the process are those that are reformed during the chain of reaction and not out of the original ones. That is already explained to you. 2 phases of photosynthesis. First one, light phase or light dependent phase reaction, or photochemical phase or Blackman's reaction. Here, light plays a key role in the phase. Series of chemical reaction occur in very quick succession. The reaction is initiated by light, therefore the phase is called the photochemical phase. This reaction takes place in the thylakoids containing chlorophyll of the chloroplasts. The reaction is known as photolysis, which means splitting by light. The splitting of water molecules into hydrogen ions and oxygen in the presence of light and grana is called photolysis. The main steps involved in this reaction are: Step 1. Activation of chlorophyll. The chlorophyll on the exposure to light energy becomes activated by absorbing photons. You can see here. Then in step 2, splitting up of water will take place. That is called as photolysis of water. The absorbed energy is used in the splitting of water molecule into 2 components, that is hydrogen and oxygen, releasing electrons, as you can see here in the reaction. In the light energy, this 2 molecules of water will give 2 hydrogen ions, 2 oxygen and 4 electrons. The oxygen component is given out as molecular oxygen, and that will move out into the atmosphere through the stomata. In the third step, what will happen? Formation of ATP will take place from ADP, means adenosine triphosphate will be formed from adenosine diphosphate. And how it will be formed? By the addition of inorganic phosphate. The electrons are used in converting ADP, that is adenosine diphosphate, into energy rich compound ATP by addition of 1 phosphate group, that is inorganic phosphate. This process is called phosphorylation, that is addition of phosphate group. The energy used in the process will come from light, that is in the form of photons. The process therefore is termed as photophosphorylation. Step 4, formation of NADPH. The hydrogen ions released in the photolysis of water is picked up by reducing power compound, that is nicotinamide adenine nucleotide phosphate. And what it forms? It forms NADPH. This is the reaction that takes place. NADP, where electrons will be utilized to combine the hydrogen ions, and it will form NADPH. That is the reducing part. NADP is an organic substance and it accepts hydrogen during the photophosphorylation. It is a coenzyme which works in association with enzyme to catalyze biochemical reaction. Now let us move on to the next phase, that is dark phase, which is also called as light independent phase or biosynthetic phase or Kelvin-Benson cycle. The old term dark phase did not mean that it occurs when it is dark, that is at night. It only meant that the reactions are not dependent on light. That is why it is better to call it light independent phase. The reaction in the phase do not require light energy to occur simultaneously with the light reaction. The time gap between the two reactions is less than even 1/1000th of a second. During this phase, carbon dioxide fixation occurs by a series of enzyme catalyzed steps, and carbohydrate, that is in the form of glucose, is synthesized. The reaction was discovered by scientists named Melvin Kelvin and Andy Benson. Therefore, the phase is also called as Kelvin-Benson cycle. Carbon dioxide enters Kelvin-Benson cycle through a special carbon dioxide acceptor compound, and that is RUBP, ribulose bisphosphate. The fixation of carbon dioxide will be catalyzed by an enzyme called ribisco, that is ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase. Molecules of ATP and NADPH are produced during light reaction. They will provide energy which is needed during the fixation of carbon dioxide. Hydrogen and NADPH combines with carbon dioxide, producing the organic molecule, that is glucose. That is food is thus produced. Ribulose bisphosphate is regenerated to start Kelvin-Benson cycle, and thus it will continue again and again in the form of a cycle. Kelvin-Benson cycle. This is how it looks like. You can see here the red arrow is showing how the fixation of 6 molecules of carbon dioxide is taking place. ATP is getting converted into ATP will give energy. It will get converted again into ADP. NADPH will give its hydrogen. It will get converted into NADP. This the electrons will be utilized and the hydrogen will combine with the carbon dioxide to form glucose, and 6 molecules of RUBP are reformed that will again utilize for the fixation of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So this is represented as Kelvin-Benson cycle. So the main events during photosynthesis: carbon dioxide from the atmosphere enters into the leaves through stomata. Water from the soil is taken up by the roots, sent to the leaves where it is distributed to mesophyll cells. Solar energy splits water molecules. Then that is called as photolysis of water. You can see here how photolysis of water is taking place by the reaction. Oxygen produced is a byproduct during the photolysis of water, diffuses out into the atmosphere. Hydrogen ions from the NADPH combine carbon dioxide with any form of glucose and it will form glucose. We can see here the overall reaction. The overall reaction of the process will be 6 molecules of carbon dioxide plus 12 molecules of water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll will give 1 molecule of glucose, 6 molecules of water and 6 molecules of oxygen that will be liberated out into the atmosphere. This is a summary of the events in light reaction and dark reaction all together. Okay, we can see the Hill reaction or the light phase, light reaction for the oxidation of water in the granum, it's taking place. And in the stroma we can see the Kelvin-Benson cycle, or the dark reaction for reduction of carbon dioxide. So this is the overall event that takes place in the chloroplast of the plant. And how does the formation of glucose takes place in the form of, we can see here how sugar is formed. Okay, now we'll be seeing the difference between light reaction and dark reaction. Light reaction is light dependent reaction. On the contrary, dark reaction is light independent reaction. Light reaction will involve chlorophyll, whereas dark reaction does not use chlorophyll. Light reaction occurs in thylakoid membrane of chloroplasts. Usually in the walls of the chloroplast, the thylakoid, this chlorophyll is present. On the other side, dark reaction occurs in the stroma of the chloroplast. In light reaction, light energy is used to form ATP and NADPH, and oxygen is released. In dark reaction, ATP and NADPH are used for the fixation of carbon dioxide. End results of the product of photosynthesis. The first product that is formed is glucose. It is immediately consumed by the plant cells. When it is formed in large amount, it gets stored in the form of insoluble starch and then converted into sucrose, used in the synthesis of fat and proteins. Second is water. The water produced in the process may be reutilized in the continuance of photosynthesis. For the continuance of photosynthesis, as we all know, that one of the raw material is water, so that can be reutilized, and rest of the water is released into the atmosphere by transpiration. The third product is oxygen. Some of the oxygen may be used in respiration in the leaf cells, and that process is called as photorespiration. Major portion diffuses out into the atmosphere through stomata. This oxygen is not a waste, as all organisms require it for their existence, including the plants, which require it at the night time. During the night time, plant will only carry out the process of respiration. They will not carry out the process of photosynthesis. Now, conversion of glucose into starch and other organic compounds. Several glucose molecules are joined together to produce a molecule of starch, which is this process is called as polymerization. Glucose formed during photosynthesis is soluble in water. It is synthesized continuously and rapidly. It cannot be transported to other cells with the same rapidity. At night, the stored starch is reconverted into soluble glucose, which is now transported to all the cells of the plants through the phloem. Glucose is transported to different cells, is particularly used in the process of respiration, and the remaining glucose is converted into starch for storage. Cellulose is the main constituent of cell walls of the plant cells. It is formed by joining together large number of glucose molecules. Some intermediary compounds produced during dark reaction are converted into simple amino acids and fatty acids, and they will produce proteins and fats that will also be reserved in the plant's body. So this was all about your topic or the explanation for the day. Let us see some of the questions that I have selected for you to write in the copy, the homework questions. Let us see those questions. Question number 1. What happens during photolysis of water? Question number 2. Where does light reaction occur in the chloroplast? Question number 3. What is the source of oxygen produced during photosynthesis? Question number 4. Write the overall chemical equation of photosynthesis. So I'll be repeating the questions once again. The very first question. What happens during photolysis of water? Question number 2. Where does light reaction occur in the chloroplasts? Question number 3. What is the source of oxygen produced during photosynthesis? Question 4. Write the overall chemical equation of the photosynthesis. So these are very simple questions that I have explained you in today's session. You need to write it in your copy. You can see your textbook also to write that. You can consult your textbook to complete the answers in your copy. So that is all for the day. Good day.